Hello everyone and welcome back for another Heffy Doodle video. This is Cassie. Today we're going to be making a Dino Winter box card, and so let's talk about what we're using. Of course, if we're making this, we have to have the big shadow box die. We're also going to be using the Wanna Build a Snowman stamps and their matching dies. And then we also have the Dino Time with its matching dies. Love this little stamp set, so cute. Then we also have the Stoney Maloney stencil, and we're going to use that with some PIXIE spray. And then we also have some alcohol marker cardstock that Heffy Doodle carries. All right, let's go ahead and get our box cut out. I have some gray cardstock. I'm going to cut out one box that looks just like this, or one piece, and then I'll need one more piece, but that piece will have to have a frame. So you end up with two pieces. I used an entire piece of 8.5 by 11 cardstock, and I did have some leftovers. I am going to cut out two of those hills, and then I need one for my background. And then we're going to go ahead and start doing some stenciling. So I've decided I needed PIXIE spray on the back of that, and that's just like a low tack sticky that will keep that stencil in place, and I find it very, very helpful. And I've got some Hickory Smoke Distress ink along with a blender brush, and it looks like I'm not really doing much, but trust me, I am. When I pull that stencil away, you are going to see that it is a nice subtle stony background, and it makes the box look like it's got some stony texture. So once I've pulled that away, you'll see. And of course, there's Miles. Max was on my lap just a second ago. And then we'll do it to the other piece as well. And then this is what will form your box. All right, so there we have it, the two pieces. We can set those off to the side, and then we can move on to our other pieces. Here I have this first hillside. I am sponging on some Forest Moss Distress Oxide ink. And the paper that I chose to use was some Bristol Smooth Cardstock for that, just easy blending that way. And next I'll work on my sunset background. And again, once again, it's some more Bristol Smooth Cardstock. And then I'm just sponging on some Mustard Seed is the color I started with. My next color will be some Abandoned Coral. And then I'll just keep blending those back and forth till I'm happy with how those have blended into each other. And then that final color is Wilted Violet. You might not think that those would blend as well, but believe it or not, they really do. So trying to make sure that my fingers are a little bit covered and I'm not leaving little fingerprints, because that is the downside to Distress Oxide, is you can leave your fingerprints all over it until it's dry. And then just, again, blending back and forth till I'm happy with how that looks. I'm going to put this into my makeshift splatter box and use like a copper colored metallic paint that I have, just using a little bit of water and a tiny paintbrush. I'm going to splatter that all over my background. I love how that copper color just kind of, you know, it brings it all together. And I'll even put it on my grassy hillside. So that's how that looks. And now we'll need to stamp out our images. So I have some of that alcohol marker cardstock in my Mini Misty, and I'm just going to ink up all my images using some Ink on 3 Blackout ink, which is good for alcohol marker coloring. I'm going to Copic color these. And then I do want to stamp out the trees. Here I'm trying to do a rock and roll technique. I don't highly recommend this with your Distress Oxides. As you can tell, it will transfer the lighter color to the darker color. And so to get rid of that, I'm actually just going to take my smaller leaf, and I'm going to ink it up using that color. That color was the Forest Moss, and my lighter color was the peeled paint. So I'll just pick up all that color that transferred over. This doesn't happen with your normal like dye-based inks, but Distress Oxides are a little bit different, so you can absolutely transfer that color. And I'm not saying you would ruin your ink pad, but I don't really recommend doing it. All right, for my trunks, I'm going to just ink those up with some Vintage Photo, and I'll stamp those out a few times. And then we're going to move on to doing our coloring. I don't want these to be snowmen. I want them to be rock men. You know, if you're dinosaurs, I guess the only way you're celebrating your winter is maybe to make a snowman, but with rocks. So I'm using my W Copic markers. I've got W4 as my lightest color, and then W6, adding some dots here and there and some shadowing and shading and blending that out. I'll even then work on my snowman after I've gotten all of my big rocks taken care of. But yeah, make little rock men. I just thought that would be kind of fun. I've seen it done with the snowman, but it was a sandman for like a winter scene with like some beach critters, which I thought was so super cute. So I thought we could do that with some little T-Rex and stuff. All right, we're also going to bring in some W8 and W9 for his hat, and then the coal on his chest. And then I'll blend that back in together with the W4, just trying to add a little bit of highlight there. And then when I'm happy with that, we'll move on to coloring our T-Rex. I went ahead and colored his little carrot nose with that YR14. My next color, my next darker color will be YR18. And we'll just bring that in for some little dotting along with some shadowing and shading. Well, I guess I don't do the dotting with my YR18, but I will bring in my E99, which is a color you might not think would go with that, but it's more of an orangey brown, and it works really well with these two colors. And so I'll just add some dotting on our little T-Rex that way. And then his tummy is going to be YR1 or YR08 and YR19. For this little guy, we've started with some BGs. That was BG57. And then we'll come in with BG18. And then our darkest color is actually going to be BG07. It's not as dark, it's not super dark, but it's a little bit. And then I'll bring in that B18 again and do some dotting with it. I tried it with the BG07 and they were subtle dots, they were nice, but I'm going to bring in that BG18 and put the dots in a little bit better that way. I don't show it, but I did color his little scarf and his hat using some red and green Copic. It was just nothing was too earth-shattering to show, so I didn't show it. I'm going to bring in a white gel pen for a little bit of highlighting. This is something that I kind of struggle with, is the highlighting with a white gel pen or adding dots. It's just not something I'm very good at. I don't do it quite as often as other folks do, but I always admire when people are able to do it. I just feel like I go one step too far and then put in a little too much. All right, now we're going to take the matching dies along with our Heffy Doodle mini die cutting machine, and we're going to cut out all of those images using that mini die cutting machine. This takes a second to get them all cut out, but I love it. Leaves a nice little white border. And now we need to assemble our box. So I kind of do this not backwards, but I'm showing you a way to do it. I put down my scene panel first, which I shouldn't have done. I should have put this piece in first, that's why I'm glad I didn't completely push down my background scene, my little sunset. And you're going to want to use a very strong adhesive when you are putting the box together. I don't recommend like a dry adhesive. Even a score tape I don't feel like is quite strong enough. So a liquid glue is probably your best bet. So I've put that one piece together. Make sure you are reinforcing those score lines, which is what I'm doing. And then I went ahead and put my box together after I grabbed just that first panel of the hill. I do bring in another panel, and I do that later, so you can add more to it even after you've put it together. It is possible. But I'm putting this first hill down, and that's when I realized after I got the whole box put together that I needed another hill. It just wasn't quite enough, and I wanted this to be nice and three-dimensional. So one hill is fine, but I definitely wanted a second. So I should have put that in before I closed all this up. However, it still works. So once again, using that liquid glue to make sure that everything is nice and adhered. And I know that Heffy Doodle has some new glue in the shop. I haven't got my hands on it yet, but I imagine it's probably pretty amazing. All right, before I put that next hill in, I am going to put a few pieces in there. I'm putting in one of the palm trees. And if you wanted to make this a Christmas card, not just a winter card, you could bring in some like sequins and put those on the palm trees to make it look like they were lit up with some Christmas lights. That would be kind of fun. But right now all I'm doing is just kind of adhering pieces down to my scene, adding some boulders there. And here's where I have one more hill. I'm going to cut this down. I don't want it to be quite as tall, so I've cut off about 1/4 inch, and then I am going to adhere this inside. It does take a little bit of finagling. You're going to have to work it since I already put everything together, but it is very doable. So I'll put glue on the one side and stick that in where I want it. And then this is where I will push things mostly down and then kind of stick my glue inside there and then push that all down so that it adheres to the other side. So it is doable, but if you decide later on you want to add more to it, you absolutely can, just to show you that you can. Now I'm adding more of my little pieces, my T-Rex with his Rockman, and then this little dinosaur. I actually end up having to cut off his back end. He just wasn't going to fit in there otherwise. And then I'll start even adding pieces to the front panel, which makes it even more dimensional. I love that about these boxes. You can add so much dimension to them, and then still they are flat when they go inside of an envelope, which is fabulous. So here I am just adding more pieces. This is even to the front panel. So cool. All that dimension in there. And then I do have to stamp out a sentiment, so I've grabbed one of the sentiments from the Want to Build a Snowman. This says, sending you our warmest, and then wishes, and that has a matching die, so I went ahead and used that matching die, and then cut out the other sentiment, and I'll adhere it to the front of my box, and I'll even adhere the wishes down to the very bottom right hand corner. I decided it kind of looked like it was just kind of sitting there, sending our warmest wishes, so I will grab a black gel pen, and I'll add a few dots right in front of wishes, like it's saying, sending our warmest ... wishes. So I really like how this turned out. It's a nice little, like, if you live in a warmer climate, this would be kind of fun to send to somebody who maybe lives in a colder climate. But isn't that great? And then it'll fold completely flat and fit inside of an A2 sized card envelope. Isn't that wonderful? I love it. So there you have it, nice and flat, and then it pops open to be a box. All right, so that's it. If you liked this video, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And as always, thank you so much for stopping by, and I will see you very soon in another video. Bye, everybody.